Hi, I'm Steven Kolchitsky, creator of Galicia Archives. In this video, we're going to go over vital records from Galicia, which are Roman Catholic, Greek Catholic, Orthodox, and Jewish of faith. Now, if this video does prove helpful, please consider subscribing to the channel with notifications, liking and sharing the video, and leaving a comment in the comments section below. Okay, let's get started. Now in this video, we'll see languages like Latin, Polish, and so on. Let me show you one quick way we could translate. Go to Google and in the search bar type translate and press enter. And the translation page will pop up. In the first box here, where it says Polish, click on the pull down arrow and choose the language you want to translate from, which I have set to Polish, and put the second box to English. Let me pull in those two words we were looking at. In Polish, kupiec, type kupiec, K-U-P-I-E-C, merchant. Now you could go in the first box where it says Polish, click on it, type Latin. If you're looking to translate from a second language, close this, and type the word you want to see in the first box on top, agricola. And here we go, farmer. Okay, so the first record is a Roman Catholic birth record. The language used was Latin. On the top left hand side, we have the page number. Since it was crossed out, this became the new page number. So they probably put a few booklets together to make one bigger booklet. Here we have the year of the record. Then starting from the left hand side, the position number or the entry number for this baptism. Then month, birth, and baptism. So here we have the date of birth and this column for the date of baptism. So Marcela here was born on the 5th, baptized on the 7th of January. Here we have Kovalówka written, that's the village. This is really cool because most of the time the village name is written somewhere, as you see here in this death record, in the middle of the page or on top of the page, and it means all the following villages, or all the following entries are from this village until the next village title later on. Okay, next we have the house number or the address. And it's even cool to have the village written here because we have the address right next to it, so we have the whole address in front of us. Then we have the name of the child that was born, the name given. Underneath we have the name of the midwife, the person who assisted in the birth. Here underneath, the name of the priest that conducted the baptism. Then we have in the following two columns, religion, Catholic or other. So there's a little one meaning she's Catholic. Then we have the sex, male or female. So there's a little notch stating she's female. Then legitimate or illegitimate, were her parents married or not, basically. Then we have in the following column or two columns, parents, name, and occupation. Sometimes you'll see the parents' information in its assigned column and the occupation, which most of the time is agricola, like you see here, which means farmer, in its dedicated column. And other times you'll see it's all written together and they didn't pay attention to the separate columns. It depends on what record you fall on. So here we have Stanislaus Kuzminski, son of Antony and Teresa, born Druszcz, which means her maiden name is Druszcz, and Agricola, farmers. And the same thing for the mom underneath here. Then in the following two columns, the same thing for the godparents. So here you'll have the godfather and his occupation, farmer. And here you have the godmother, and something you'll see often enough is usor. I'm not sure of the pronunciation, but usor, in this case Gaspari, or if we go to the next one below, Agnes, usor, Johannes or John. This means spouse of. So she's the spouse of this guy, and she's the wife of this guy, and so on. Okay, here we have a Roman Catholic marriage record. As you see, it's in Latin. Here on the top of the page, this is the page number. Now, as we zoom in, here we see the position number. So number 4, that's the position number of these folks getting married. We have the year, 1895. The month of the marriage, so here we have February. And 3, the date. The house number, so they have 100, and the priest wrote Zastavce. Now this priest must be the same priest as the previous document, because usually the village name is not written by the house number to make one complete address, but rather somewhere in the middle of the page, and all the following entries are from that village. Okay, now we have sponsors. That's the groom-to-be. His name. So here we're going to have his name, his parents' name, the occupation, and the village of birth, and the village where he resides, his residence, where he lives. So here we're going to have Jan Kowalski, son of Paul and Apollina, born Sługocka. So this is the mother's maiden family name. Then we have Sutor, that's the occupation, born and lives in Szwajków. Sometimes if they were born in one village and live in a different village, well then they would write natus in whatsoever village, and then habitus in whatever village they're living at that moment. Now here we have religion, Catholic. So we have a little number 1 under Catholic. A different religion, well, a little line just say that that's blocked out. Here we have the age. Here we have the civil status, if he's single or a widow. So in this case, he's single. And then we go over to the bride-to-be. So the same thing as for him, as for the groom-to-be. The name of the bride-to-be, then we have her parents' name, their occupation, or her occupation, and where she was born and where she lives. In this case, both are the same village, Zastavce. Now, notice Zastavce is where the wedding is, and Zastavce is where the bride-to-be is from. This was very common, to have a fair amount of pays for all the priests for each parish. Well, usually it was custom at the time that the wedding would take place in the bride-to-be's church. Now we have the witnesses. Joseph Sługocki from Szwajków, so he's the best man. And the bridesmaid, here we're gonna have her name and that she's from Zastavce. Now underneath, usually you're gonna have comments. These are usually like the date of the marriage ban, the village where the bride-to-be and the groom-to-be, where they were born and baptized, and so on. Now here we have a Roman Catholic death record. As you see, it's in Latin. On the top of the page, 279, that's the new page number. Here, as we zoom in, we see pages of Muszkatowce, so this is the village name for all the following entries. On the top left-hand side, position number. So here, Jan, he's in position 17 from the previous village. Mariana, she's in position number 1, the first death, we could say, of the year, and so on. Here we have 1883, the year, day and month of death and of funeral. So here in Jan's case, he died on the 25th and his funeral was on the 27th of November. Here we have the house number. The address is under this village, this number, this number, this number, and so on. The name of the person, Jan Tchaikovsky in this case, and it's either going to be the information of their spouse or their parents. So here for Jan Tchaikovsky, he's the husband of Justyna Adamovska and their occupation, farmers, agricola. Here if we go lower, we could see Peter, son of Bartek and Maria Uruska, also farmers. Now we have here the religion, Catholic or other. Then we have the sex, male or female. Here we have the age. And here we have the cause of death. Here, Sapel, well, that's the priest that overlooked the funeral. Now we have a Greco-Catholic birth record. As you can see, it's almost identical to the Roman Catholic birth record. The printed languages in this case are Russian and Latin, but the priest wrote in Latin. On the top left-hand side, we have the page number. Here we have the year, the month of birth, baptism, and in this case, confirmation. They added an extra column. So Katarina here was born on the 10th and baptized on the 11th of August. And here the priest reiterated the year. Now we have here the house number, the address. The village, well, it was written in the middle of the page on the previous page. Here we have the name of the person getting baptized, so in this case Katarina. And obstetrics, that this is the name of the midwife. Here we have religion, Catholic or other. And in this case, the priest went out of his way and instead of just putting a little one, he even put GR, meaning Greco-Catholic. Here we have the sex, male or female, so they put a notch for female. Here we have legitimate or illegitimate. So in this case, legitimate, which means the parents were married. Here we have the parents, their information, so name and occupation. In this case, they didn't care for each column, they just used both columns as one. So here, if we zoom in, we have Anthony, son of Sebastian Czerwiński, and Maria Rybicka, I believe, something like that. And they were farmers. And then we have Christina and the information of her parents. Then we have here the godparents and their occupation. In this case, they kept the information for the respective columns. So here we have Theodore, and we have that he was a farmer, and so on. Here we have a second version of a Greco-Catholic birth record. The printed languages are Ukrainian and Latin, and the priest wrote in Ukrainian. On the top left-hand side, we have the page number, in this case 6. Here where the year is supposed to be written, he didn't write it, but instead the priest wrote it underneath each date and in the middle of the page at the beginning of each new year. In the first column, we have the position number or the entry number. Then we have here month, date of birth, and date of baptism and confirmation, both sharing the same column. So in this case, Anna was born on the 27th and baptized on the 28th of this month of this year. In the next column, we have the house number, the address. The village, again, is written somewhere in the middle of the page, most probably on the previous page. That's why we don't see it. And we have the name of the person getting baptized. And underneath, the name of the midwife. In the next column, we have the religion, Catholic. And in this case, there's no column for other. So it's only this, only one column if they were Catholic, Greco-Catholic, I mean. Then we have the sex, male or female. So in this case, a little number 1 that she was female. Then we have if she was legitimate or illegitimate, if the parents were married or not. Then we have the name and information of the parents. So in this case, we have the name of the father and the name of his parents and his occupation. And then the same thing for the mother. Here we have the godparents and their occupation. So here we're gonna have the godfather and the godmother. And here in the final column, it's a little column for annotations, extra comments or remarks. And here at the bottom is the name of the priest who did the baptism. Okay, now we have a Greco-Catholic marriage record. In this case, it's pretty much the same as the Roman Catholic marriage record. It's completely in Latin. Here on the top left-hand side, we have the page number, the year, the day and month of the marriage. Here underneath the column for the groom-to-be, we have the house number. We have his name, family name, occupation, the village he's from, and the name of his parents. Then we have the religion, if he's Catholic or other, the age, and the civil status, if he's single or if he's a widow. And for the bride-to-be, again, the same information. Here, for the bride-to-be, she's also a widow, they added the name of her previous spouse. So here you could see Maria Cote Vidua Post and the name of her previous spouse, and then the occupation of farmer, the village, and the name of her parents, and so on. Here, in Constantine's case, they didn't put the name of the previous spouse. Here in this column, we have the witnesses and the village that they're from and their occupation. So in this case, you're gonna have Jan Bodnar, and you're gonna have farmer in, and this is the village. Same thing for her. Now we have a second version of a Greco-Catholic marriage record. The printed languages are Latin and Ukrainian, and the priest wrote in Ukrainian. On the top right hand side, we have the page number, and on the left hand side, on top, the year. Let's take a closer look. Starting in the leftmost column, we have the entry number, or the position number of each pair. Then in the second column, month, but in the case of row number 1, the priest wrote the day and month, and in rows 2, 3, and so on, he wrote the complete date, meaning date, month, and year. Then in the third column, the house number, but in case 2 and 3 and so on, he wrote the whole address. In the next column, we have information on the groom-to-be, name, occupation, parents' name, the village he's from, and so on. Then we have the religion, Catholic or other, he's Catholic. Then here in this column, the age, but the priest wrote the complete date of birth. Then in the following two columns, these two here, civil status, single or widow. In this case, he's a widow. Then we have the information on the bride-to-be, name, parents' name. Here, in this case, her as well, she's a widow. So we have the name of her previous spouse, the village she's from, and so on. Then, just like with the groom-to-be, the religion, the age, the priest wrote the date of birth, and civil status, widow. Then we have information on the witnesses, name, and occupation in different columns, and also the village they're from. Here at the bottom, this is the name of the priest who gave the wedding, conducted the marriage. And there's something specific I want to show you guys. As you see here, this Remo means Roman Catholic, and this means Greco-Catholic. So sometimes they didn't put just a line, but they specified if, in this case, the groom was Roman Catholic and the bride was Greco-Catholic. And I'm not surprised to find the record here of a Roman Catholic being married in a Greco-Catholic church, because the tradition was to get married in the bride-to-be's parish. Also, at the bottom of certain entries, this is usually information like the date of the marriage banns that were given, or the parish where the bride-to-be or the groom-to-be were baptized, and so on. Okay, now we have a Greco-Catholic death record. The printed languages are Latin and Ukrainian, and what's really interesting is the priest wrote both in Ukrainian and in Latin at different times. Here you see in 1924 the months and the name of the people as well as the causes of deaths, which we'll all go over in a second, he wrote in Ukrainian. But in 1925, the months and the names he wrote in Latin, keeping the cause of deaths in Ukrainian. Okay, let's go over in more detail. On the top left-hand side, page number. Then we have the position number. On top here, the year. The year you also wrote at the beginning of each new year, as you see here in the middle of the page. Then we have the month and day of death and funeral. So in this case here, died on the 6th and the funeral was on the 8th. And the month is written below. Then we have the house number, the address. Then we have the name of the person, usually written with the name of the parents or the name of the previous spouse if the person is a widow. Then we have the religion. Here they made note Greek Catholic or other. Then we have masculine or feminine. We have the age and the cause of death. Now we have an Orthodox birth record. This is something new compared to what we've seen so far. The printed language is Church Slavonic, and the language used by the priests often were either Church Slavonic, Russian, sometimes Ukrainian, and quite often they tend to mix. Let's take a closer look. Here on top, metrical book for the year 1915. In the two first columns, these columns have dual use. They give us both the sex of the child, in the first column being male, second female, but also they give us the position number of the child being registered per sex, which means 15, 16, and 17 were all three males. But then the fourth registered birth is at position 15 of females. Next, we have month and day of birth and baptism. So in this case, in this month, on the 18th. Victor over here was born and baptized on the 19th. In the next column, the name they gave the child. Now over here we have the information on the parents. So we have their religion, the village where they come from, the first name, patronymic name, family name, and so on. Here we have the priest's name. As we go on, we have the information on the witnesses, on the godparents. So we have, again, the religion, we have their first name, patronymic name, family name, and sometimes the village where they come from. Here in this column, it's the priest that did the baptism. And in the final column, usually it would be for signatures, but this was optional, they didn't oblige it. Okay, now we have an Orthodox marriage record. The printed language is Church Slavonic, and the written language, again, was either Russian, Church Slavonic, sometimes Ukrainian. It depended on the priest, and they at times tend to mix. Let's take a closer look. Metrical book for the year 1910. In the first column, the position number or the entry number of the present marriage. Then we have the month and day of the marriage. In the third column, this is all the information on the groom. So his first name, patronymic name, family name, religion, the village where he comes from, and the marriage number. So basically if this is his first marriage or whatnot. Then we have his age. And then the same information pretty much for the bride. Then we have her age. Underneath here we have the priest. And again here, the person who conducted the marriage. Then here we have information on the witnesses for the groom and for the bride. So we have first name, patronymic name, family name, the village they're from, and so on. And in the final column, this is where they had the option to sign, but again, it was optional. Okay, now we have an Orthodox death record. The language is like in the previous two records that we looked at. Metrical book for 1911. In the two first columns, just like in the birth record, we have dual use, masculine and feminine, and their respective position or entry numbers. Then we have month and day of death and funeral. So the first, she died. On the third, she was buried. Then we have the information on the person who died. So we have the first name, the patronymic name, and the family name, and sometimes the village that they came from, and underneath the name of the priest. Then in the following two columns, again, dual use, masculine and feminine, they repeat, and the age of the person who died goes in the respective column. Then we have the reason of death. In the second to last column, we have the name of the priest who administered confession and communion. And in the final column, the name of the priest and the place of burial. So basically the priest who did the funeral. And now we have a Jewish birth record. The typed languages are Polish and German, and the written language is Polish. Let's take a closer look. on the top left hand side, Blatt 30 comes out to basically page 30. In the first column, we have the entry number or the position number for each person. Column number 2, the birth. We have the day, which is the 10th. Then we have the month. Then we have the year. Then the village or city, place basically, in this case Rohatyn. And the address or the house number. In column number 3, we have circumcision or name giving. And again, the day, the month, the year, the place, and the address or the house number. In column number 4, the child, name, here's the name given. Then we have the sex, masculine or feminine, and a little number 1 saying she's a girl. And then for the next person here underneath, well, since they're twins, under feminine they put 2 girls. In column number 5, basically illegitimate or legitimate. Now what's really interesting here is they might say illegitimate or not married. The exact translation is married or not married. But not because it's written not married were they actually not married. No, most of the time it meant that they were married, but only at the synagogue, only religiously, and not registered with the court, with the city, or in a civil registry. So since they weren't civilly registered, if that was the case, well, here it had to be written illegitimate. In column number 6, name, family name, status, occupation, place of residence of the father. So here you have the father's name, what he does, where he lives, and this I believe is the age. Next, the mother. So we have her name, family name, status, place of residence, and her parents. So this is her, daughter of, and this is her father's name and mother's name and family name, and the village where they reside. Number 8, 9, and 10, basically it says signature, occupation, and place of residence of the witness, Sandek or Shamas. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. In the next column, the person who performed the circumcision. So in the third entry here, since it was a boy, well, this is the person who performed the circumcision. And in the next column, the midwife. Then in column number 11, this is if the child was born dead, if it was a miscarriage. And in column number 12, the final column, these are just remarks or add notes. And here we have a Jewish marriage record. The whole record is completely in Polish. On the top left hand side, STR with a dot means page and 74. Then metrical book for Jewish marriages for the year 1931. Then, as we take a closer look, in row 1, the entry number, 19. Then row number 2, the groom-to-be, his name, family name, place of birth, occupation, place of residency where he lives, house number, and the name, family name, occupation, and the place of residence of his parents. So here we have his name, born in this village, Nagojance, also lives there, and sin of the married couple and the parents' name from the same village. Then we have his age and date of birth, or born on the day and his date of birth. Then we have the civil status, if he's single or a widow. So in this case, a widow. Then in row number 3, the bride-to-be, and pretty much the same information: the name, family name, place of birth, and name, family name, occupation, and place of residency and house number of her parents. So here we have her name, family name, born in Kovaluvce, region of Buchach, lives in Nagojance, the same village as him, daughter of the married couple, and this is her father's name and her mother's first name. And then we have Z Domu, Z space DOMU, and this is very important. When you have a mother's name and after it's written Z Domu, which means exact translation from the home of, this translates as maiden name. So always think the family name that comes after is her maiden name. And from Buchach. So this is pretty important for other documents as well. Remember that. Then age, her date of birth, and civil status, if she's a single or a widow. In this case, she's single. Then as we go lower, row number 4, the marriage. So the date and month, the 9th of August, year 1931, and the same thing written in cursive. The place, Buchach, 5 and 6, the signature, and place of residence. So we have the person who conducted the marriage and the witnesses. Then underneath all this info, this is pretty much like remarks or extra information. So here you could find different things like where the person's birth records could be found, or which synagogue the marriage ban is, or all kinds of extra information. Okay, now we have a second version of a Jewish marriage record. It's similar to the one we just saw, except it's organized a little differently. The printed languages are Polish and German, and the written language is in Polish. Let's take a closer look. On top, page 8, in the first column, the entry number. In the second column, the information on the groom-to-be. So his name, family name, place of birth, occupation, place of residency, house number, and the information on his parents. Then we have the age. So basically this is the date of birth. Here we have year, here we have month. Then here we have his civil status. So if he's single or if he's a widow. Then in the third column, the information for the bride-to-be. So pretty much the same thing, name, family name, place of birth, and occupation, place of residence, house number, and information on her parents. just like in the previous record we just saw. Again, age, year, and month, but they just basically wrote the date of birth. Then we have civil status, again, single. As we go over, we have information on the wedding date and where it will happen. So day, the month, listopad, November. Then we have the year, 1919, and the place, where, Buchach. Then in column number 5, we have signatures. And then here, underneath, it says with place of residence. And this part here, which signifies this column, is for the person who conducted the marriage, the rabbi. And in this column here, the witnesses, signatures. So here you see the rabbi from Buchach. Here for the witness, it also says their occupation, which is given. And in the final column, we have extra information or add notes, info like marriage ban, the date, or the birth, where the metrical book is found, and so on. And now the final record we'll be looking at in this video, a Jewish death record. Both the printed and written languages are in Polish. Take a closer look. Page 21, column number 1, the entry number, the position number. Column number 2, the information on the person who looked at the corpse, who identified its death. So the doctor over here, the date, and where. Then column number 3, the death, the hour, the day, the month, Liptza, July, the year, 1925, the place and house number. So we have Buchach and Ulice Kolejowa. So this is street, the name of the street. So Buchach is city. And column number 4, the funeral, day, the 9th, the month, Liptza, July, the year, the place, which city, Buchach. Then in column number 5, information on the person who died, name, family name, civil status, occupation, place of residence for him and his parents. So we have Isaac Hallberg, son of the married couple Samuel and Clara Hallberg from Buchach. And then we have the place of residence, Buchach. And here the house number, well, they put the name of the street. Column number 6, the sex, it was masculine. Column number 7, the age, in years, 30, and months, 1 on 30. Then the civil status, he was single. Here we have married, or here we have a widow. Then we have sickness or type of death, so basically what he died from. And then in the 10th column, it's add notations, it's extra information. If there's notes the doctor wants to make or somebody wants to make, well, it would be here. And that's it. Well, I hope you found this video useful. If you have any questions or comments, or just to let me know who and where you're researching, please leave them in the comment section below. Please consider subscribing to the channel with notifications, liking the video, and sharing it with someone else who might find it useful. Thank you, and I hope to see you in the next video.